Hi everyone, I hope you are having an amazing week so far. I'm happy to say that through my last video, where I started yet another sketchbook, and through talking about my fears and expectations with you, it gave me the strength and motivation to keep on painting in this sketchbook. So today I have the next 2 pages of the sketchbook to show you. When I do portrait studies, I usually sketch on this A5 format sketch paper. It's really cheap paper, so don't feel like wasting paper when a sketch ends up being crap. It takes the pressure off me when sketching, and being free and without worries is important for your creativity. So if I end up liking a sketch, I copy it to watercolor paper and then color it. So I'm not really used to directly sketching watercolor paper, and in this case in a watercolor sketchbook. But I'm still happy with how these portraits turned out. So let's paint the last of the 4 little portrait sketches and talk a bit about my process here. Admittedly, I'm not the best sketcher, but I'm constantly trying to improve. I use a lot of reference lines that for some may be unnecessary or too much, but to get the proportions right, I need them. I do a rough outline first with all the lines and shapes that I need for guidance, and then erase that with a kneaded eraser until it's only barely visible, and then do the proper sketch. In this case, I tried to sketch very carefully because I didn't want the surface of the watercolor paper to get damaged. I usually look for reference pictures on Pinterest or Instagram because I can't really sketch from memory, which I'm also trying to improve on. I can really see the difference in quality when I sketch from reference or from memory, which sucks. Because I wanted this to be a clean sketch, I used a mechanical pencil, but usually when I sketch on sketch paper, I use all sorts of normal pencils or even colored pencils. When I was happy with the sketch, I moved on to preparing the paper with washi tape and masking fluid. As mentioned in my last video, sketchbooks are supposed to be for exploring new art styles and techniques, so I thought I'd experiment a bit with different things here. First, I started with a portrait sketch on the upper left corner. I wanted every portrait to have a unique color composition, so I did a first layer with pyrrole orange and connection and coral for this one. I let the first layer dry completely, because through my first painting in this sketchbook, I noticed that the paper isn't really suited for wet and wet techniques. Then I added more color to the face, which I kept in the same color scheme, and for the shadows I used a muted down ultramarine blue. For the hair, I used a mix of the orange and coral and added a bit of Mars brown to get this auburn hair color. I wanted it to be bright and coppery, and I ended up really liking the colors here. Then I removed the washi tape and masking fluid and continued with the second portrait in the bottom left corner. I wanted this one to be a complete contrast to the first portrait, and as the sketch itself was already intense, I tried to keep the colors simple and more on the cool side. I really liked the facial expression, so I wanted to enhance that with the colors I used. I added blue to the background and then wanted to separate it from the rest of the page by painting a gold line. Then for the third sketch I thought of a warm brown for the hair and green for the eye color. I used the same approach to this portrait painting as with the others by painting a first layer for the skin, letting that dry and then adding the rest. But from here I started to switch to different brushes as I wanted to experiment a bit. Sketchbook paintings are after all to explore your art style, art supplies or art process. I have to say that this was my least favorite sketch of all the 4, but I still managed to paint this somewhat to my satisfaction. The last sketch was definitely the most fun to paint. Despite yellow not being my favorite color, I used a mix of green gold and orange to set the overall tone for the sketch. Green gold really is an amazing color. I really liked the contrast to the rest of the page. While the paper was still wet, I added green apatite genuine to the background as well and then let the first layer dry before starting on the rest. For the hair color, I mixed PB60 Delft Blue and Pure 73 Pale Orange to mix the black first, and then added green apatite genuine into the mix to get a dark green. I'm not really good at painting wavy hair or hair in general, so I tried to keep this simple, but I enjoyed this very much. Finally, I used white gouache to add highlights to the portraits, for example, the whites of the eyes, highlights on the nose and lips, or contours. I could leave those spaces empty in the first place, or mask them before starting to paint, but that is honestly too much work for me, and I like using white gouache to add the final details to my paintings. I also use different colored pencils and fine liners to clean up some lines and add definition. Especially with small portraits like this, it can look a bit sloppy. Also, I love this part of finalizing my watercolor paintings, as I can go over every aspect of the painting again and give it the finishing touches. I also decided to use gold and silver watercolor paints to add some little sparky details here and there, like some abstract flowers for the first painting. I'm really happy with how this 2-page spread with these 4 little portrait studies turned out. Every one of these portraits is unique, but they harmonize together. I learned a lot through this little exercise, and it gave me the motivation to keep on painting in the sketchbook. Despite it not being the best quality paper, I can still make high quality art. If I had to decide which one is my favorite of the 4, it's either the first on the top left corner or the last on the top right corner. I like the warm auburn hair color, but the green is also super cool and I like the expression. If you'd like to see me continue with this little sketchbook painting series, then please let me know in the comments. As always, I hope you liked watching my video. I will try to keep painting in the sketchbook to continue my sketchbook journey. Thanks so much for being here with me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!